She made you laugh, she made you cry, she lit up every room she ever walked into. And then, one day, it seemed like she just disappeared. The golden-haired girl who charmed a generation. The woman who turned comedy into art, vulnerability into stardom, and pain into purpose. But behind that famous laugh, behind the effortless charisma, there was a story that Hollywood didn't want you to know. A story of trauma, fear, courage, and a woman who chose to rewrite the rules entirely. This is the real story of Goldie Hawn. Welcome back to What Really Happened To You, the channel that goes beyond the headlines, past the PR spin, and deep into the stories that truly shaped some of the most iconic names in entertainment. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into it. Goldie Jean Hawn was born on November 21, 1945 in Washington, D.C., and raised in Silver Spring, Maryland. Her father, Edward Rutledge Hawn, was a musician. Her mother, Laura Steinhoff, ran a jewelry store and a dancing school. And then, before the fame, before the Oscars, before the magazine covers, people who knew her described the same thing: an infectious energy, a lightness, a warmth that made everyone around her feel better just for being near her. But that lightness, it was hard-earned, and it was about to be tested in ways she could never have predicted. In 1968, everything changed. Goldie Hawn was cast on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, the groundbreaking NBC sketch comedy show that was tearing up television ratings and rewriting the rules of what comedy could be. Her character, a giggling, scatterbrained blonde who couldn't quite keep it together. She'd burst into giggles at the wrong moments. And audiences absolutely adored her. But here's the thing, and this is something Goldie has spoken about openly in interviews over the years. The dumb blonde persona wasn't entirely accidental. It was, at least in part, a mask. A very carefully constructed shield. Hollywood in the late 1960s was not a kind place for ambitious women. Intelligence was threatening. Assertiveness was punished. Women who seemed too capable, too driven, too aware. They made powerful men uncomfortable. And uncomfortable men had a way of making careers disappear. So Goldie played the game. She made herself small. She played less than. She let the world underestimate her, and while everyone was busy laughing at the ditzy blonde on their TV screens, Goldie Hawn was quietly, strategically building an empire. In 1969, just 1 year after Laugh-In launched her to fame, Goldie Hawn made her feature film debut in Cactus Flower, starring opposite Walter Matthau and Ingrid Bergman. She played Toni, a free-spirited young woman caught in a romantic entanglement. The response was instantaneous. Critics who had written her off as a TV novelty were suddenly paying attention. Here was depth. Here was timing. Here was a real, genuine, once-in-a-generation screen presence. The Academy agreed. At just 24 years old, Goldie Hawn won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. She walked onto that stage in 1970, wide-eyed, a little overwhelmed, utterly luminous. And the world fell in love with her all over again. But even as Hollywood celebrated her, something darker was happening behind closed doors. Something the cameras never caught. Something she wouldn't speak about for decades. Before we get into that, if you're finding this story as fascinating as we do us a favor. Drop a comment below telling us which Goldie Hawn film is your all-time favorite. And if you haven't already, please like this video. It genuinely helps us bring more stories like this one to more people. Now, back to Goldie. The entertainment industry of the 1960s and 70s was a predatory place. Most people know this now. The Me Too movement brought it into blinding clarity. But for women like Goldie, who were living it in real time, there was no hashtag. There was no support system. There was no language to even describe what was happening. Goldie Hawn has spoken in careful terms about being sexually harassed early in her career by a powerful figure in the music industry. She was young. She was trying to make it. And like so many women before and after her, she had to make an impossible choice: stay silent or risk everything she'd worked for. She stayed silent, and that silence had a cost. Around the same period, Goldie began suffering from debilitating panic attacks. Anxiety so severe it made her physically ill. At times, agoraphobia, the fear of open spaces and public situations, made it nearly impossible for her to function. Think about that for a moment. Here was one of the most in-demand actresses in Hollywood, a woman whose face was on every magazine cover, whose laugh was on every television set. And she was terrified, genuinely terrified, not of failure, not of the audience, but of the world itself. None of this made the papers. None of this made the late-night talk show circuit. Because Goldie Hawn, brilliant, strategic Goldie Hawn, kept smiling, kept laughing, kept showing up. The entertainment industry of the 1960s and 70s was a predatory place. Most people know this now. The Me Too movement brought it into blinding clarity. But for women like Goldie, who were living it in real time, there was no hashtag. There was no support system. There was no language to even describe what was happening. Goldie Hawn has spoken in careful terms about being sexually harassed early in her career by a powerful figure in the music industry. She was young. She was trying to make it. And like so many women before and after her, she had to make an impossible choice. Stay silent or risk everything she'd worked for. She stayed silent, and that silence had a cost. Around the same period, Goldie began suffering from debilitating panic attacks. Anxiety so severe it made her physically ill. At times, agoraphobia, the fear of open spaces and public situations, made it nearly impossible for her to function. Think about that for a moment. Here was one of the most in-demand actresses in Hollywood, a woman whose face was on every magazine cover, whose laugh was on every television set. And she was terrified. Genuinely terrified, not of failure, not of the audience, but of the world itself. None of this made the papers. None of this made the late-night talk show circuit. Because Goldie Hawn, brilliant, strategic Goldie Hawn, kept smiling, kept laughing, kept showing up. By 1980, Goldie Hawn had done something remarkable. She had not only survived Hollywood, she had conquered it. And Private Benjamin was the proof. The film told the story of Judy Benjamin, a pampered, naive young woman who joins the army after her husband dies on their wedding night. Through culture shock, humiliation, and eventually genuine transformation, Judy finds herself, finds her voice. Sound familiar? It should, because Judy Benjamin's journey from underestimated woman to unstoppable force had more than a little of Goldie Hawn in it. Goldie didn't just star in Private Benjamin. She produced it. She developed it. She fought for it. And when it became a massive box office hit and earned her an Oscar nomination for Best Actress, it wasn't just a career high. It was a statement, a declaration. Goldie Hawn was no one's dumb blonde. She never had been. Goldie's personal life has been as complicated and as compelling as her professional one. She was married twice. First to director Gus Triconis, then to musician Bill Hudson, with whom she had 2 children, Oliver and Kate. Both marriages ended in divorce, and both endings, by Goldie's own account, were painful. Then, in 1983, she met Kurt Russell on the set of Swing Shift, and something shifted, not on screen, though their chemistry there was undeniable, but in real life, in the quiet moments between takes. And the way he looked at her like she was the most extraordinary thing he'd ever seen. Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn have now been together for over 40 years. They are one of Hollywood's great love stories, but even they will tell you it hasn't always been easy. There have been rough patches, difficult seasons, moments where the relationship required real work, real honesty, real commitment. What's kept them together? By all accounts, mutual respect, a shared sense of humor, a deep and genuine friendship, and a willingness to keep choosing each other, even when it was hard. They never married. Deliberately, Goldie has said that the mystery, the choice, every single day, to stay, is what keeps love alive. Not a piece of paper, not a ceremony, but a daily, conscious act of devotion. We're about halfway through Goldie's story, and honestly, the most surprising chapters are still ahead. If you're watching with someone right now, share this video with them. And if you're watching alone, well, you're about to find out why Goldie Hawn may be one of the most spiritually evolved people to ever come out of Hollywood. Stay with us. Here's something that almost nobody talks about when they discuss Goldie Hawn. something that sits quietly underneath all the glamour, all the success, all the laughter. Goldie Hawn is deeply, profoundly spiritual. She has spent decades studying Buddhist philosophy and mindfulness practices, not as a trend, not as a celebrity wellness pose, but as a genuine, lived, daily discipline that has fundamentally shaped who she is. She describes a moment in her early 20s, a moment she calls almost mystical, where she experienced what she can only describe as a sudden, overwhelming sense of universal connection. A feeling that everything was connected. That love was the fundamental force of existence. That fear, the thing she had been carrying since her earliest days in Hollywood, was ultimately an illusion. That experience, she says, changed her life. Not overnight, not in any dramatic Hollywood fashion, but slowly, quietly, profoundly. It gave her a framework for understanding her own suffering and a path towards something better. And eventually, it gave her a mission. In 2003, Goldie Hawn founded the Hawn Foundation, and with it, a program called Mind Up. Mind Up is a mindfulness-based educational program designed specifically for children. It teaches kids from kindergarten through high school how to understand their own brains, how to manage stress, regulate emotion, build focus, and cultivate compassion for themselves and for others. The program is now in schools across multiple countries. It has reached hundreds of thousands of children, and the research behind it, real, peer-reviewed neuroscience, shows measurable improvements in academic performance, emotional regulation, and social behavior. Think about that. A woman who spent decades hiding her own anxiety, who suffered silently through panic attacks and fear, built a program to make sure children never have to carry that burden alone. That's not a celebrity side project. That's a life's work. That's a legacy. So why did Goldie Hawn step back from the spotlight? After a string of major films throughout the 80s and 90s, Overboard, Bird on a Wire, Death Becomes Her, The First Wives Club, Goldie's film appearances became less frequent in the 2000s. For a generation of moviegoers, it looked like she had simply faded away. But here's the truth. Goldie Hawn didn't disappear. She made a choice. A deliberate, eyes-wide-open choice to step off the treadmill of fame and step into something she valued more. Presence. Purpose. Peace. She has spoken candidly about the entertainment industry's obsession with youth, with female beauty, with the relentless pressure on women to remain forever the version of themselves that the world first fell in love with. She refused to chase that. She refused to perform that. Instead, she poured herself into her foundation, into her family, into her grandchildren, into the quiet, meaningful work of actually living. Not performing life, but living it. That takes a particular kind of courage. In a world that celebrates presence, choosing absence, choosing to walk away on your own terms, is one of the bravest things a person can do. So what really happened to Goldie Hawn? She survived. She grew. She transformed. She was a girl who danced before she could walk, who learned early that the world was safer if you smiled and played small, who carried real pain beneath the laughter that made a nation fall in love with her. She became a woman who used that pain as fuel, for art, for love, for activism, for legacy, who built a 40-year relationship on the foundation of daily choice, who looked at the children of the world and said, "You deserve better tools than I had." She didn't disappear. She evolved. Beyond Hollywood, beyond the frame that fame tried to put around her. Goldie Hawn is still here, still laughing. For real now, fully, freely. And that laugh, that unstoppable, golden, world-famous laugh, it was never just a performance. It was always, underneath everything, the sound of a woman who chose joy. Every single day. That's the real story of Goldie Hawn. Thank you so